that they place historical events in a context that is so approachable and so immersive because of the visual element, and that feels so personally relatable because of the visual element, that it really brings these historical events into a kind of a more intimate effect than I think just reading about them in prose would have. And it's interesting, I think we occasionally get people who are concerned about the level of invention that goes into them, but not as often as you would think, because I think that the value of these books is so obvious and so strong. A couple of the books that we've been looking at that I'm particularly sort of fervently in favor of. I love all my children equally, of course, but I particularly love The Photographer, which is sort of a great case of more rigorous nonfiction in comics, because it is wonderful, yeah. Pick up a copy of this book if you guys can find it, especially those of you who are teaching current events and sociology at the high school level. It is the story of a photojournalist, Didier Lefebvre, he was embedded with a Doctors Without Borders mission in rural Afghanistan in the 1980s during the Soviet invasion. And the book very cleverly combines his actual photographs from that trip with comics format panels with carefully documented conversations and events that happened across that trip, as he recounted it later to his friend, the cartoonist who created this book. So if you're looking for something that's pretty solid in terms of, this actually happened, undeniably true, like very well documented nonfiction, The Photographer is a great example of it, and in fact, it's probably my gold standard. And just for contrast, the book that we have next to it here is Zara's Paradise. This is another contemporary, so even calling this history is maybe a little bit of a stretch, because it's about the Green Revolution and the Arab Spring that took place a few years ago, so it's very recent history. But this is, the events documented here are we okay? Are highly personal and highly subjective. And so this is one where you can look at it and sort of come at it with a more, a point of view as an educator, where you're asking your reader to look into, okay, what's the tone that this is being presented in? What is the agenda of this book? What is the political context for this? And there's a lot of analysis that you can do in that direction. I would be happy to take any questions from you guys about sort of how First Second makes decisions about the kinds of books that we publish, but in terms of sort of the unique challenges for me as an editor in editing graphic nonfiction, I would say always it's sort of finding that balance between fact and fiction, and making sure that the fiction, I'm almost afraid to talk. Making sure that the fiction that you do incorporate in serves the story and serves the point. Serves sort of the content that you're presenting in the book in a smart and hopefully honest way.
And it's not like invented scenarios or anything new to fiction. You go back to Euclides, is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, I think
the
so.
guy who wrote the Peloponnesian War.
Yeah.
The earliest historian that we have, and there are all sorts of clearly invented, he was not there, he talked to people that were, we have a little bit of insight into those methods, but invention or speculation on, we know this thing happened in broad strokes, we're going to go in and create a personal narrative for it, because that's what people care about. He wanted people to read these histories, and it's the same challenge we have today. You have to have that personal touch, even if 100% happened. Who knows, right? But now we have Fred and Ryan to talk about many awesome things and show us many awesome things.
Yeah, Tim was talking about Ryan and I have been working together doing nonfiction comics since about 2003.
Yeah.
Our first title was called Action Philosophers, and it was the lives and thoughts of history's A-list brain trust told in a hit and humorous comic fashion. We kind of just did it for fun. Like, we did it for ourselves, and I mean...
Just kind of stumbled onto the educational aspect of making comics pretty much by accident.
Yeah, it wasn't until teachers started coming up to us at Comic Con saying, "Do you have a poster of this? I need copies of this in my classroom." That we went, "Oh,